East Tennessee Zone, WDVX. It's Uncle John's Marble City Jam and a special feature today as I am joined by the smoking young mandolin player, East Tennessee Zone, Wyatt Ellis, and we're sure tickled that he's joined us on the show today. Wyatt, how are you doing, man?
I am great. How are you?
Well, I'm very well. I'm happy that you're with us. And gosh, you got to be tired coming back from Nashville last night playing at Opry 100 with Daly and Vincent. And is that your third time playing on the Opry?
Well, I've played on the Opry a bunch with them. I've done it times under my own name as a solo artist, and gosh, I've probably done it 8 or 10 times with Daly and Vincent. So it's always a fun time.
So does at this time, has it begun to feel a little bit more, I don't want to say routine, but you kind of know what it's going to involve? You've been there before, the green room and everything.
Definitely. But last night was different because it was at the Ryman instead of the Opry House, and it was my first time there.
Oh, yeah. So that had to be incredible, right? At the mothership, right?
Yeah, it was really awesome.
So let's get everybody up to speed real quick on your sort of, however you want to describe it, meteoric rise in the bluegrass world. But we'll turn back those hands of time to 2019 when you first started playing the mandolin. Is that right? 2019 at age, were you 10? Were you 9?
I started playing mandolin at age 10, I think. So I've been playing for a little over 5 years now.
I would say that most people, after 5 years of playing their instrument, are not on the Grand Ole Opry. And that's just unbelievable. You can pour everything into it for 5 years.
It was a lot of work.
So you started playing in 2019. 2020, you're selected for that Folk Life Apprenticeship, the Tennessee Folk Life Apprenticeship with Sierra Hull, right? And
yes.
Would you say that was sort of a catalyst point in your career, kind of starting that relationship?
Yeah, that was the first, big thing that, happened in my music journey, and just getting to connect with Sierra like that really, really gave me a boost.
And of course, you've continued to play with Sierra a lot. After the apprenticeship. Can you talk to us about that apprenticeship and tell us, what did that entail, and what was it like meeting Sierra and first, starting to kind of take your musicianship to the next level?
Yeah, so that was an eight-month apprenticeship, actually, and it was through the state of Tennessee. It was a grant, and she was looking for a young player who was, really interested, and she heard my name a few times and reached out, and that was that. And we got together, a few times a month during that period, and I think it really helped me a lot.
I think that's the sort of thing that can kind of show you the pathway, that it's achievable, that it's doable, and that you're sort of in the right circles to make it happen.
Definitely, yeah.
So talk to us sort of about how things started to pick up after and through the apprenticeship on into 21 and into 2022.
Well, I was learning so much online during that time, especially through Christopher Henry. And I'll talk more about him a little later, too. He plays mandolin for Peter Rowan, and he's one of the best Monroe mandolin style players out there. And he was putting on these Monroe style mandolin workshops with David McLaughlin, another amazing mandolin player. And I got to know them well and learn a bunch of Monroe tunes from them. And that was definitely a big part of my style early on, was that deep dive into the Monroe style. And once I was able to, out of the pandemic, get back and play with people, I was able to put that to practice and kind of create my own style. Right.
And bring that influence into it, and playing with other players and great players, right? There's that give and take. You're always picking stuff up. And I want to take a quick pause and talk to us about that Monroe style.
Yeah, it's so cool. First of all, that's obvious, but it's kind of got the ancient tones, as Peter would say, and it's kind of got that raw sound, but still refined in a way. And I think that's what I was drawn to, that more abstract style of mandolin playing.
I really like that idea of ancient tones, and I think that bluegrass music and mountain music by its very nature, has that ability to tap into those, the ancient tones and that
Definitely.
pathway and that door.
Yeah, and that sometimes like tends to get lost in a lot of today's bluegrass and stuff, but I think it's really magical when you can keep that going, but still build upon that with some more progressive stuff.
Well, I think that's the natural progression of music and how it should be, right? You take the building blocks, the genuine aspects of it, and you push it forth throughout time with your own expression. And now that music is sort of serving you and your own performance.
Yep, exactly.
So in 22, then, you are asked to perform alongside Peter Rowan and Molly Tuttle for Rowan's induction to the Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame. And I understand that was sort of an interesting story about how that happened, and maybe it was kind of last minute.
That actually came through Chris Henry as well. He wasn't able to make the gig, so, he called me up and he asked Peter if it would be all right. And, that was history. And I showed up, and I dove in and learned, Peter's whole new album, and then like some of his other stuff. I knew a lot of his traditional stuff, but I learned all of his new stuff. And we show up, and I get to the hotel room at IBMA to rehearse, and I get in there, and I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. I sit down, and he's like, "I hope you have some long pants."
Oh,
and I was like, "Here we go." And then we rehearsed all the tunes after that. It was good. Then we got to the show, and there was a few of the tunes that we rehearsed, but it was mostly stuff that he decided to do in the moment.
Oh, so he was throwing you curveballs.
Yeah. That's a true Peter Rowan moment right there.
Right. But I think that shows, a lot about you as a young player to be able to pivot. Hey, no problem. Whatever gets called out, we're playing. And you hung right in there.
That's the way it is. Like every time I show up to play the Opry with Daly and Vincent, they don't know what song they're going to do till about 15 minutes before they go on. So, it's just the way the bluegrass music is.
I think that gives a lot of crowd appeal to bluegrass music. When you go to see a bluegrass show, you don't know what's going to be played, right? You've got an idea.
Exactly.
There are the classic tunes. There's an infinite amount of, traditional old-timey tunes, but also bluegrass covers and standards, through the years, and you never know where it's going to go, right?
Never, yeah.
So that was 22. Moving into 23, you, in February, appeared on the Grand Ole Opry for your first appearance with Daly and Vincent. Is that right?
Yes, that was my first appearance on the Opry, and I actually made my artist debut a little bit later that year, that November.
In November, right?
Yeah,
right.
So it was a pretty awesome year.
So talk to us about your first time playing there with Daly and Vincent and those feelings as you sort of approached showtime, the day of, it's getting closer up until that moment you walk out on stage.
Yeah, definitely. I was definitely nervous the first time, and it was something I've always dreamed of. And standing there side stage, you get nervous, but once you walk out there, and you might be a little bit nervous on the first song, but after that, you're good to go. And it's just another gig, and it's pretty special.
All the hours of practice and the connection that you have on stage just forms like that.
Yeah.
So that was your first appearance then. And like you said, in November of that year, right? Well, let's not skip some of the other exciting stuff that happened in 23, right? Leading up to that solo debut, because that's a big deal. And we want to talk about that at some length. But first, Doc Watson's 100th birthday, right? And you pick some with Billy Strings, right?
Man, that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. How about that, right? Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, Billy reached out and said to come on down, and we didn't know what was really going to happen. We hadn't been in touch. So we showed up, we got there, and picked. It was definitely amazing. Just got up there. It was a 3-hour show or something. So
right.
I had never seen anything like that, but it was still kind of like a jam session.
Of course, that year as well, your first single, Grassy Cove, comes out, which again, you wrote at age 11. And
I
I
did, yeah.
wonder about what's it like having a debut single roll out and sort of momentum building. Did it feel natural to you? Like this is how life is, for me, or was it like being on a roller coaster, like a rocket
Well,
ship ride?
there was a big build up to it because I wrote the songs like when I was 11 and ended up recording them when I was like 13.
Right.
And then the songs came out like when I was 14. So like it was kind of a big build up, which, was definitely made it even more exciting and surreal to have any sort of a song out there.
Absolutely. And of course it was met to, great acclaim. And then did that come out just before your solo debut, your individual debut on the Opry?
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember exactly when it came out, but I think it came out that summer.
Okay.
And I actually went down to the Opry, and I think another one of my singles may have came out that night. But that debut, I actually had Sierra and Justin on there with me, and I started it off with a tune of mine called "Get Lost," more of the jam feel. And then
Mm-hmm.
after that, we did "Grassy Cove" and Sierra came out and played that with me. So that was a full circle moment for sure. And we closed out with a good old Jimmy Martin tune called Tennessee.
Good deal. And that had to be an unbelievable full circle moment with bringing Sierra Hull out when it was just, 3 short years ago, you'd been selected for the apprenticeship and you first meet her and your journey has had its start. And then, like I said, in 3 short years, you're one of very, very few young teenagers to make a solo debut on the Opry. And I wonder
Yeah.
how that moment felt, and if that feeling has developed at all, since that time.
Yeah. So that was even more surreal. Just like, and I was pretty nervous. And I think just like once you get out there with, people and you start picking bluegrass, it kind of goes away and you just start picking.
Would you say that you're one then, your practice and your playing, when you get out there kicks in and you can rely more or less on instinct as you're playing?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just something I've always loved to do, and I definitely put in a lot of work at it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's clear when you hear your playing, and you hear about your mental approach to music. It's clear the amount of work and practice and dedication that goes into that, because it doesn't come for free. And you see that sort of laid out in your success. And then we move into 2024, right? And things aren't slowing down, are they? Happy
Yeah.
Valley, debut album comes out, and talk
Yep.
to us about making that record.
Man, it's pretty awesome. And it started, it's just a few tunes that I had written with, some heroes of mine on Skype during the shutdown. And I was like, we need to document these tunes. And we ended up doing just that. And it was all collaborations pretty much. Most of them were co-writes except for a couple. And yeah, it was just like a snapshot of that time when I was writing tunes with those guys pretty much.
And what about that album rollout and the build up to that? Your first album, right? And you had releases come out, but was there anything different when it came down to releasing a record than you had experienced before that?
Yeah, it was pretty surreal and pretty crazy just to think that I had a full record out there of original tunes.
And then
It's not.
go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, that leads right into 2024. You're named the IBMA Momentum Instrumentalist of the Year. And at this point in your career, right, the bluegrass world and the community outside of that is starting to really take notice of this young mandolin player out of East Tennessee, Wyatt Ellis. And that leads right into now, right? Of course, coming off of the Opry last night, we've got Winds of
Yeah.
Rowan County coming out this week. And And why don't you talk to us a little bit about your new release?
Yeah, so the double-sided 45, I've actually got it right here. It's pretty cool. Not there's not many 45s coming out nowadays, but I figured since it was kind of a old school collaboration between me and Peter, we had to have a old school vinyl to go with it.
Absolutely.
And the B side actually is, like I said, "Memories of You," which is an old Bill Monroe tune.
So talk to us about how you first got linked up with Peter, and when were the seeds laid for this Winds of Rowan County release?
Well, first of all, I'd met Peter at the at his induction at IBMA, and we were standing outside the hotel there, and I was talking to Peter about a very special mandolin that I was going to play that night. And I've actually got it with me right now, but it's a 1924 Gibson F5 Lloyd Loar, and I was like, Marty Stewart. I was telling Peter that Marty Stewart had played that mandolin to raise money for Bill Monroe's gravestone on that benefit concert. And as soon as I said Bill Monroe's name, a big gust of wind came and blew Peter's hat off, and he goes, "You said Bill Monroe's name," and you know that's as Peter Rowan as it gets.
Right. So did you feel sort of in that moment that there was, some sort of special connection going on, between the two of you as lovers of Mr. Monroe's music and as players?
Definitely. Peter was a bluegrass boy back in the day, and
Absolutely.
I've studied it as about as much as you can study it, and I feel like just all that same material that we love kind of blended together into this project for sure.
So talk to us then about the process of creating the single, right? Winds of Rowan County. Talk to us about writing that and what that looked like.
So I had written the tune for Winds of Rowan County, no words or anything. And then messaging Peter about it, lining up to record it, and I send it to him. And a few weeks later, when he's over in Ireland, he messages me back and says, "I have some words for your tune." And I looked at them, and they were amazing. But when we got together and arranged it is really where the magic happened for the way it turned out. And we kind of put the lyrics in the middle of the instrumental in a way, and finished it out with Peter doing some lonesome sounds.
So was there anything that just really stands out to you? Of course you can't have, a favorite part of the record, but what's the special sauce in this single, so to speak?
Just Peter, it's just, he makes everything come to life. And when you guys hear it, I think you'll know what I mean.
Absolutely. And of course, we're going to be hearing it today right here on this edition of Uncle John's Marble City Jam. And of course, we'll hear the B-side to Wyatt Ellis's new 45 release, Memories of You. And talk to us about that tune and how that got selected for the B-side. But obviously, there's plenty of Monroe tunes to pick from, right? So why that one?
So I was talking to Michael Daves, who's another one of my big mentors, and we're talking about Peter and stuff and how I might want to do a duet. And he's like, if I had to pick a tune to do a duet with Peter on, it would probably be Memories of You. And at that point, I had heard it once or twice, but I wasn't super familiar with it.
Right.
So I went back and I listened to it and learned it. And it was kind of a last minute thing. Like, me and Peter were in the studio, and when I sang this, I was like, I had never really sang it before. So I just got some words and did the best I could, and Peter matched it, and I'm pretty sure it sounds like some Monroe style singing.
I think it absolutely does. Again, we'll hear the A and B sides of Wyatt Ellis's brand new release, the A side, Winds of Rowan County, and then of course taking on Bill Monroe's classic Memories of You. That is all out actually right now. Winds of Rowan County, Wyatt Ellis. And Wyatt, but before we let you go today, I want to talk a little bit more about music, just sort of in general. And I want to start with your musical sort of background. And I wonder, just to kick off, do you come from a musical background?
I don't at all. Nobody in my family plays actually, but I've heard it around the mountains here
Right.
and heard it most of my life. So I figured, just one day I'd heard, Rocky Top and Bobby Osborne playing the mandolin on it, and that inspired me to pick it up. And after that, I'd obviously heard Bill Monroe and my favorite now, the Stanley Brothers and Ralph Stanley, and I take a lot of influence from their music as well.
So you say Bobby Osborne ripping that mandolin solo on Rocky Top was sort of the aha moment. How do you remember or have any idea how old you were when that sort of light went off in your head?
I think just when I got a mandolin at like the age of, I think I'd almost 10 when I got my mandolin. I was 9.5 probably. So yeah, I just heard it and it's like, man, I want to get a mandolin.
9, 10. Maybe late for some to pick up an instrument, early for others to pick up an instrument.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, of course, I didn't start playing the guitar until the same amount of time that you, or right around the same time that you started playing the mandolin. Of
That's
course,
awesome.
I have no singles. I have never played on the Opry. I probably never will. So what do you think help things click musically for you? It seems so natural, almost like talking, when you're playing.
You just kind of have to study the alphabet, Bill Monroe, the Stanley Brothers, just anything you can pick up. You just got to study it and learn it the best you can. And then your own style will start to form.
I want to talk about music for you today. What about music inspirations for you today? I know you had just talked about the Stanley Brothers. What are you listening to these days?
Man, I've been digging deep into that stuff as well as some classic country stuff, and I've been learning jazz from Michael Daves, like I mentioned earlier. So I've just been diving into a little bit of everything.
For me, I feel like great players have this ability to call upon different influences, almost like a painter using different paints. That's the way you got to do it.
Like if you're wanting to like really refine your singing, you just go out and find the singer that resonates the most with you. The best singer you can find. Doesn't have to be in bluegrass or whatever genre you're in. You can go outside of your genre, but just work on that. Like with mandolin, I'm able to fill a lot of holes in what I know by going and studying jazz,
Right.
So I feel like the more you can expand out of your genre, the better.
Well, talk to us then a little bit about your, personal thoughts and approach when it comes to those genre blending aspects. And I feel like, of course, we see that with, cats like Billy Strings, bringing all kinds of elements, but also, Sierra Hull, she's doing stuff with the Almond Betts Family Revival Band. And that is certainly blending bluegrass with, Southern rock and jam music. And do you see any of that sort of stuff in your own playing?
Yeah, definitely. Like, and most of the stuff that I do is like more subtle, probably. Like, I love when I play traditional bluegrass, I love to keep it in that pocket and then like do like some other things. But like, I don't know if I like blend them together as much as some people, but I can definitely see some of that in the future for sure.
You touched on that idea of when you're playing a written piece, that is very structured. It's not an improv session. You're not just taking a jam break. Finding different ways to be reverent to the tune that you're playing, but have little flourishes that make it Wyatt Ellis's take on, Bobby Osborne's Rocky Top.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's something that really sets apart great players like a Sam Bush or, or a Grissman,
Definitely. Yeah.
Their ability to call upon the traditional structures of tunes, but to call upon all kinds of influence, like with Grissman and, bringing in, Latin jazz influences with with his quintet
Yes.
work and things like that.
Yeah. I love that stuff.
Do you think, on down the line, and of course when do you turn 16, by the way?
I turned 16 April 3rd.
Okay, so your road, of course, is just starting, right? Do you look forward to, or do you ever have any thoughts of, oh, one day I would love to do, a bluegrass quartet arrangement, or one day I would love to. Well, let me expand this question. Do you have any arrangements or places that you would love to play, or people who you would love to play with that you haven't been able to yet?
That's always a hard question. I've gotten to
Well,
play
you played with so many greats
with so
already.
many of my heroes, and I haven't gotten to play with Dog yet, but I've gotten to meet him on FaceTime with Sam, actually, Sam Grisman.
Oh yeah.
And that would be pretty cool to get to play with him someday.
Absolutely. So moving forward, right, we've talked about your sort of approaches to genre blending. We've talked about your rise. We've talked about who you'd like to play with. Oh, here we go. Talk to us about your relationship with WDVX's own Alex Leach.
Yeah, so I've got my own bluegrass band nowadays, and that's been a big part of this year, and or last year, and it will be a big part of this year and many more years going forward. But Alex has actually been playing a lot of guitar and singing a lot of tenor in my band over the past year, and we've kind of formed that, East Tennessee style blend.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there anything maybe that on down the line that we could keep our eyes out for, or just
Definitely
playing?
Well, we're going to be doing a little bit of both. We've kind of started the process of a record with me and the band, so that's definitely going to be exciting, maybe later on this year. But yeah, it's just going to be a little bit of everything.
I think that's exciting to look forward to. And of course, for right now, we don't have to look forward anymore to Wyatt Ellis, Winds of Rowan County, which is out now. It dropped yesterday. Right here, Wyatt Ellis on Uncle John's Marble City Jam. Is there anything you want to leave us with before we jump into some of this music?
I don't know. I'm pretty excited to hear it.
Well, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm your host, Colton Zenni, a special feature on Uncle John's Marble City Jam. Wyatt, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let's hop into this music on East Tennessee Zone, WDVX.